Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello. My name is Crystal and thanks for joining us today. In this video, I wanted to talk about my Hobonichi Weeks setup and how I'm using it as a bullet journal. If you're only interested in a specific part of the video, feel free to check out the timestamps below and move ahead to the part you want. But if you didn't skip, let me tell you a little bit of a backstory about my journey with using the Hobonichi Weeks as a bullet journal. So I've been using the Weeks for 3 years now, and throughout the years some things have changed. However, for the most part, a lot of the elements have stayed the same. Even when I wasn't using the Weeks, I would find myself being drawn to the horizontal weekly plus memo format. Throughout this video, I may be referencing some of my previous bullet journals, but the focus would be this current one, and this is 2025 Hobonichi Weeks Spring Start in the Pine Forest cover. But before we go into detail into this, I just wanted to state a little disclaimer. So the bullet journal is the brainchild of Ryder Carroll, but the way I use it is not that faithful to his actual idea, and instead, it is a loose derivative of that concept. If this isn't your first time hearing about the bullet journal, then you'd know that a typical BuJo is supposed to be a blank notebook where it gives you the freedom to move tasks around and create your own sections. In contrast, the Hobonichi Weeks is structured. It already has built-in sections like the yearly overview, monthly pages, and the weekly sections. However, I think the reason why the Hobonichi Weeks has always worked for me in the past is because it combines both a structured and a freeform element. So, if this is your first time seeing the weeks, aside from the structured part that I've shown you, a major feature of this book are the note pages in the back. A standard weeks will have 71 to 75 grid pages, while a weeks mega will have up to 219 note pages. I guess for me, the structured part eliminates the work needed to set up sections, while the note pages offer the space to help me track and record things that cannot be contained in the weeklies. So to preface this Hobonichi Weeks bullet journal tour, my main takeaways from the BuJo method are the logs, the trackers, and collections. After the cover page, the journal opens to the very first spread, which is the calendar. On the left side, you get the current year, which is 2025, while on the right, you have the previous year and the next year. At the bottom of the current year, we have this list of Japanese public holidays. So the Hobonichi Spring Start releases do not have an English version, that's why this is in Japanese. But if you do not live or work in Japan, you can always cover this up and replace it with your own notable dates. As for me, I only use these calendars for reference, so I do not mind that this is here. Then, on the next page is the yearly index. I'm very basic when it comes to this page. I only ever use this section as a step count tracker in all 3 of my Hobonichi weeks. I do have a step counter on my phone, but laying it out like this in one page is a great overview to see how I'm doing with my commitment to walk daily. Right after the yearly index are the monthly pages. So although this is technically an April start, the monthlies actually start in March 2025 and cover until April 2026. I use this section very straightforwardly. It's where I input important dates like birthdays, holidays, appointments, flights, things like that. So any notable thing that involves a date, I record it here. I color code some of the dates like green for birthdays, blue for holidays, and orange for appointments. For those that I do not color code, I like to use icon stickers to denote things like grocery runs, flights, and other errands. Also, starting in August, I've used this part on the left side to track some things that I want to take note of that are not necessarily habits. I was inspired by May from the channel Saturday Daydreams with this one, so I'm gonna link that particular video below. One of the categories I'm tracking is whether or not I drank soda or alcohol on a certain date. So it's not something I'm trying to restrict, but I want an overview on how often I do it or not. Another category is whether I eat seafood. I know it's very specific, but on our last wellness checkup, I had higher than normal uric acid, and it's because I overindulged in seafood a lot before, so I just like to monitor it. Another extra thing I do is letter the month with a brush pen wherever there is space. Because this is a Japanese version, only the number of the month is shown here instead of the name. So this is another thing I got from that video by Saturday Daydreams. So please check that one out if you're looking for more Hobonichi Weeks inspiration. I think my biggest takeaway from bullet journaling is the concept of rapid logging and daily logs. So this is the typical layout of the weekly section. On the left side, you have the dated side from Monday to Sunday, and this is where I enter my rapid logging. Then on the right side, you have the blank grid memo page. In this area, anything goes. It can be my weekly overview or an extension of the dailies. Rapid logging is a major part of the BuJo method, and with it comes the key system or signifiers. In the official Writer Carol method, some of the signifiers used include a circle for an event, a dot for a task, an X if that task is completed, a dash for a note, an asterisk to note that a task is a priority, and many others. When I first discovered this aspect of BuJo, I was just overwhelmed and I found the system to be too chaotic, so I wanted to incorporate a simpler key that would suit me better. After trying out different things, I found that this is the key that works best for me, and I'm still using it until today. So I use a dot, then a circle, and these are the two main symbols I use. I use the dot to signify a note or a log. I'm more of a logger and a record keeper than a planner anyway, so I use this a lot in my weeks. And I really do not have to mark anything as priority because a lot of the stuff I write already happened anyway. The circle denotes a task. When the task is done, I just fill in the circle. Sometimes I do a task, but not all the way, so I'll still fill it in partially. That way, I know at least I have started something. Then, if I listed a task that I no longer have to do, I just cross it out to signify that the item is cancelled. So there's a difference between a task that I haven't done versus a task that is cancelled. So, for example, I have a task like submit book review. If I do not do it on a given day, that circle remains open, telling me that I haven't done it yet. On the next day, I will simply copy that same entry and it's another chance for me to complete the task. But for a crossed out circle is a task that I planned to do that evolved into something I no longer have to complete. So for example, on this day, I plan to do the laundry. However, I overslept and when I woke up, my husband already did that chore. Therefore, I'll cancel it because I didn't do the task, yet there's no need to move it to another day because it's already done. When I started using the weeks in 2021, I really loved using the memo page as a habit tracker for the week. I preferred weekly habit tracking because it was bite-sized and therefore more low stakes and involved less pressure. If I didn't succeed with a habit for this week, I get a fresh start come Monday. So, as you can see here, the very first week of me using the Hobonichi Weeks, I went with my usual habit tracking and also a sleep tracker below that. But this is the only time I did this in this notebook because again, I learned something from that video by Saturday Daydreams, and that is about the loop habit tracker. I was so amazed by how simple the interface of the app is that I decided to download it and use it. I think May still records her habits both in the Hobonichi Weeks and the Loop Habits Tracker app, but I just loved how easy it was to keep everything on the app that I no longer bother with transferring the data in the weeks anymore. Another thing that I record in my weeklies is my water intake. So I just use a blue mild liner to highlight the equivalent of 8 grid squares, each representing a glass of water. One dot equals 1 glass of water. Another learning that I try to stick to this year is not letting blank pages bother me. So as you can see, this spread is just empty. I think this was the Holy Week. I'm Catholic and we do observe that, so I really didn't record anything that week, and I told myself, that's okay, moving on. The week after that, I just started logging again. Then around June, I decided that I wanted to use the memo page as a way to observe my sleeping patterns. So I did that. I would just label it sleep review, and then beside that is the description of what I did before bed, whether I tossed and turned before falling asleep, whether I got up in the middle of the night, things like that. Then in August, I changed things up a bit again because I just felt like it. So I divided the memo page into three. One column is for the sleep review, the middle is a meal tracker, and the last column is just a record of how I felt physically or mentally on that day. I did that for a week, and then the following week I eliminated the meal tracker and I just included the sleep review and the physical and mental symptoms. Then, sometime in September, I read an article from Time which said something along the lines of obsessing about your sleep quality can actually backfire and create more anxiety about your sleep. So I decided to stop my sleep review. And we're catching up on October, and that's it so far for my weekly pages. And now we are here. The note pages are probably my favorite part of the weeks that most structured planners or journals do not have. I love that there is a complementary freeform element to the structured part. Hence, even though the daily parts have a teeny tiny space, I always have ample room in the back to fall back on. So my note pages begin with this index and mine is already filled. Then we move on to my collections. My mainstay collections always have movies that I watched, books that I've read, and TV series episodes. It's not very glamorous, it's literally just a running list of all the things per category divided by month using a gray mild liner. But I love the look of it and it's super low maintenance. This year, I also tried to include this collection which I titled Buy Stuff, and it's just a list of things that I purge or rehome or gift to other people. This way, I just have a record of things that I let go, so down the road, I do not wonder where some of my stuff went. Another new thing I wanted to try is to create a series dedicated tracker for things that my husband and I binge watch. So this one is for the X-Files, which we actually started back in January. It's our first time ever watching this, and it was great the first few seasons. But we did feel it downgraded when David Duchovny left the show. How I did it is I labeled the seasons, list the episodes underneath that label, then mark it with circles on the left. After watching an episode, I would fill the circle in and write the date after the episode name. Then, I wanted to track book series that I wanted to read, but so far, I have only read one book in my goal. I actually already have read the original trilogy for the Hunger Games years before, but I wanted to do a reread before delving into the prequels. Then I told myself I wanted to have a physical copy of the books, and I found these really beautiful deluxe editions by Scholastic. But the problem is, it only has the first four books. As a completionist, I thought I would be bothered if they wouldn't come out with a similar edition for the fifth one, so I decided I will wait until there is a box set with all five books. But as of recording this, I don't think there are any plans. Then I wanted to create a watch list, but I haven't been updating this lately, so I don't think that's working out. Another series tracker, this one for Modern Family. It's just the same format as the X-Files one. My husband and I really love this show. Then another one for Prison Break because we thought it was being removed from Netflix Philippines, only to discover later that it was added on Disney Plus. And then, when it was time for Hobonichi season, I wanted to make a wish list of everything that I wanted from this year's lineup. It is now October and I really haven't ordered anything because I'm not there yet financially, but I did make a video on how I'm able to fight FOMO. I loved making that one and I'm glad a lot of you out there cared to show that video some love and share your own thoughts about Hobonichi season. So thank you so much. This is another experimental spread that I'm trying out and I labeled it my product tracker. I wanted to keep track of our frequently used supplies at home, so I just did this. There is a product master list on the first column, then I just have repeating columns of when we opened a product and when we finished them. So below the opening date, I just put the brand we are using because we're not that brand loyal in a lot of this stuff. Then below the finish date, I just write in red ink how long that use lasted for. Certainly, you can create a spreadsheet for this if you wanted, but I just love writing this by hand. Then, a few pages down, I had this attempt at a meal tracker section. I'm not very consistent with it, but I really want to pick up this habit again because our diet is something that I also want to improve on, and seeing our eating habits will really help with trying to make a change. So we'll see if I stick with that. I usually don't use the special pages in the back, that's why I don't mind getting a Japanese version. But what I thought about using this, my 100 section 4, is listing down recommendations. Whether it be recos from people I know in real life, or creators I follow online, or even ads that I see, I try to list it down here when I do remember. So far, it's a short list. And that's it for my Hobonichi Weeks bullet journal setup slash flip through. If you watched until this part of the video, do let me know by leaving an evergreen tree emoji in the comments. Aside from that, I really want to know if you're a fellow Hobonichi Weeks user or if this is your first time ever hearing about this. My real-life friends aren't really stationery or journal enthusiasts, so I love engaging with this community online, and interacting with you in the comments is one of the things that gives me joy when it comes to this hobby. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I really hope to see you in a future video.